Your boy needs a new pair of shoes, and that's why we have a new Monster Hunter collaboration coming in October for Final Fantasy XIV. And honestly, I think Final Fantasy XIV gets the better end of the deal here. Let's talk about it, let's speculate, and let's dive into it. Hello everyone, I am Jmulls, and we have a lot to talk about. While I was streaming the Gamescom opening night live, we had a trailer for a Final Fantasy XIV and Monster Hunter Wilds collaboration. Monster Hunter Wilds gets an entire Omega boss fight, while for Final Fantasy XIV, we get essentially the mascot of Monster Hunter Wilds, Arkveld. If you were around back in Stormblood, you may be familiar with a previous Monster Hunter collaboration that Final Fantasy XIV had, that being against Rathalos. It had a unique healing mechanic with the potion system, and you could even get a Rathalos mount alongside a Palico, the little cat companion mascot guys from Monster Hunter, as a minion. Well, going off of the trailer, it seems as if what we are getting is at least a Sekret mount. A Sekret, for those who don't know, is essentially like this feathered velociraptor which serves as your mount in Monster Hunter Wilds. Think of it like a chocobo, just if it had a love child with a dinosaur. Now, I think Arkveld is a really cool monster from Wilds, and it's also one of my favorites from that series. But outside of just possibly producing a really cool encounter within the confines of Final Fantasy XIV, prepare for line and Colonel AoEs. I think what they're essentially hinting and teasing at with this trailer could be even more cool. One, for the love of God, make Arkveld a mount like you did with Rathalos, that would be so dang cool. But also, too, it seems as if, at least from the trailer, now it could be just a cutscene for a little story they have for the collaboration, that's entirely possible, but it seems as if there's a brief little segment where we're like going alongside cliff sides in order to track down Arkveld itself. And if there's some mechanic in the lead up to a fight with Arkveld that involves actually tracking the beast down, I think that could be really cool. It could easily be overplayed, and especially for those who want to grind this fight over and over and over again for whatever rewards it will give, I could easily see that being kind of annoying. Though, if the idea and the goal is to emulate that Monster Hunter experience, having some time dedicated to tracking down the beast, or possibly moving around the map as the monster brings you to various locations over the course of the fight, I think that could be really dang cool if done right. Like anything, it will entirely depend upon the execution, but I think this has so much potential and upside. And I am glad they're doing another one of these Monster Hunter collaborations, because I think Arkveld specifically has so much potential to be a very interesting boss. I seriously want a mount, but I want to talk about the nature of crossovers overall and why I like the Monster Hunter collaborations for Final Fantasy XIV specifically. I think the main reason I like the idea of crossing Monster Hunter over with Final Fantasy XIV is because aesthetically it makes sense to me and meshes together. Having a fight against Rathalos or even Arkveld doesn't look like it's out of place within Final Fantasy XIV, which, to be fair, already has a very broad and wide aesthetic range, but if we had something completely unrelated to any of that, like, say, I don't know, a Roblox collaboration, it would look super out of place and would undermine the aesthetic of the game. Some people don't care about that. I do. It's one of the reasons I don't particularly care that much about a lot of modern multiplayer games, is because they are so inundated with these crossovers that just undermine the aesthetic of what I liked about the series to begin with, Call of Duty, that it takes me out of it and I become less invested with the overall product because I do not like what I'm fundamentally looking at. But a crossover that works can be really cool and exciting, especially if you're already a fan of that product, the IP. I'm a fan of Monster Hunter Wilds. I have my own issues with that game, but overall, I seriously enjoyed that game, and getting a fight in Final Fantasy XIV based on one of my favorite monsters from that game, I'm all on board with that. It looks awesome, sounds awesome, I want to play it. But something I briefly mentioned at the start of the video, I thought Final Fantasy XIV had the better end of this deal, because I don't like Omega in Monster Hunter Wilds. For the exact reason I just talked about, I feel as if the aesthetic clashes fundamentally with what I would personally want out of Monster Hunter. Especially when there are other alternatives that could have been in Monster Hunter Wilds that I think would have been way cooler than just another Omega fight. Omega feels way too mechanical and sci-fi for something that I would want out of Monster Hunter. Whereas Bahamut is right freaking there. Why they didn't go with Bahamut eludes me, and I will never understand that point unless they just couldn't figure out how to get like Mega Flare or like one of the flares to work. Or maybe they're doing multiple fights and they just only advertised Omega right now. Who knows? if that's the case, good on you, but like, Omega in Monster Hunter Wilds is a prime example of what I'm talking about when I say, hey, this is something that I feel is being added to the game that is undermining the aesthetic of what I like out of that specific product. Whereas for Final Fantasy XIV, adding Arkfeld doesn't feel as if it clashes with the aesthetic because it's essentially a giant beast we're fighting. We've had plenty of those, and the Monster Hunter idea and aesthetic has worked in Final Fantasy XIV before, and I think it can work again with Arkfeld. We've talked about crossovers recently when it comes to the Alliance raids, but I do think more often than not, Final Fantasy XIV does kind of manage to weave the aesthetic of whatever they're crossovering with into Final Fantasy XIV relatively well. And for the things that don't really match, they give them more like minor crossover rules for just like events. Remember the Yokai Watch event? Does Yokai Watch really feel as if it fits with Final Fantasy XIV? No. But they give it a little fun event where you just grind some fates, get some optional weapons and stuff like that, and it's fine. And with how broad Final Fantasy XIV's aesthetic can be on the best of days, I don't feel as if it clashes that much. Like the most egregious, large form example of content that is a crossover that you could argue clashes with Final Fantasy XIV is the Nier stuff, and we talked about that in a previous video. And I can completely understand that, do not get me wrong, but Nier Automata is also my favorite game of all time, so when you cross over with something that I really love, I'm not gonna particularly mind all that much. It's one of the examples of nuances when it comes to this overall topic and debate. I do think more often than not across the industry, I find crossovers to feel really corporate, and more often than not, they feel as if they just don't blend with the thing they're being integrated into. But then every now and then, you get one which just feels like a match made in heaven. Monster Hunter into Final Fantasy XIV is one example of that. Halo 3 ODST into Helldivers 2 feels like another great example of that. By the way, in case anyone was wondering, yes, there is a teaser website for this event, but the only information on it is the trailer from Gamescom, and then a little guide saying get to level 100, do the Dawn Trail story, at least up to the quest, and including the quest called Dawn Trail, and then do the event. Yeah, to say it's minimalistic is being very generous. I think the Monster Hunter Wilds collaboration has the potential to be really cool, especially with it releasing, I imagine, somewhat around the time of 7.35, so it'll probably just be something extra and fun we can do alongside everything else. If they do not give us an Arkveld mount, that will be a fail of epic proportions. I'm just gonna lock that in right now. I know we're getting a Sekrat mount because they showed that off, but my god, they need to make sure we get that Arkveld mount because it has so much potential. It'll be really freaking cool. That's just my 2 cents on the subject. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Are you looking forward to this collaboration? What are your thoughts on collaborations overall? Especially when they handle like the Monster Hunter ones have been. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. And if you want to be up to date and to be notified about all future Final Fantasy XIV news and my content about it, you should leave a like and subscribe. Follow me on TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter, Jmulls. I have a Discord in the description down below. And guys, toxic positivity and overall negativity surrounding the game have been topics that have gone on for a long time, but they're coming to a head recently, so I decided to weigh in and give my thoughts on them. If you want to hear more, you can check out this video right here for more. Stay safe, have a great day, go play some video games, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye everybody, until we meet again.